Hi, it's Lupe again, and I'm reading Chapter 6 of The Adult Children of Alcoholics Syndrome, From Discovery to Recovery by Wayne Kritsberg. I have to confess that after reading those first 5 chapters, it's like I reactivated something else again in my psyche, brought up a lot of stuff that I thought I had already, worked on. So if you find yourself after you've been, listening to this or reading the book yourself, that you need a little extra support, do it. Go reach out to your sponsor, get another book, go see your therapist, talk to a friend, go to a meeting, go to recovery2.0.com or, whatever it is that helps you when you're feeling a little bit stressed. Because that's what I found when I was reading this book. But now that I've told you my life story, let's get on with Chapter 6, shall we? All right. Chapter 6, Characteristics of ACAs. A person who is raised in an alcoholic family, because of the 4 family rules of rigidity, silence, denial, and isolation, develops a set of characteristics that are similar to others who are raised in the same kind of system. These similar characteristics, shared by ACAs, can be grouped into 4 main categories. 1. Emotional characteristics. 2. Mental characteristics. 3. Physical characteristics. And 4. Behavioral characteristics. ACA's characteristics grouping chart. So now there's this chart in front of me, and there's 4 columns. The first column, starting on the left, says emotional characteristics, and that is fear, anger, hurt, resentment, distrust, loneliness, sadness, shame, guilt, numbness. The second column is mental characteristics, thinking in absolutes, lack of information, compulsive thinking, indecision, learning disabilities, confusion, hypervigilance. Then the next column says physical characteristics, tense shoulders, lower back pain, sexual dysfunction, gastrointestinal disorders, stress-related behaviors, allergies. Then the last column, the 4th column, behavioral characteristics, crisis-oriented living, manipulative behavior, intimacy problems, unable to have fun, tries to fit in, compulsive addictive disorders. So now we're going to break them all down so we'll know what's up. Emotional characteristics. While all ACAs do not share the same mental, physical, or behavioral characteristics, they do, however, share the same underlying emotional states. These similar emotional states of being allow ACAs to recognize and identify with each other, even though their behavior may be different. A good example of this is the ACA who has a long string of unsuccessful relationships, and the ACA who is stuck in a single relationship. For both of these ACAs, the root issue is most likely fear and distrust. One person acts out of the fear and distrust by moving from relationship to relationship, and the other acts out of fear and distrust by staying in the same unhealthy relationship long after it's time to bail out. As these 2 ACAs talk to each other, they find out that although their outer behavior is very dissimilar, their inner feelings are very similar. When a group of ACAs get together, they often feel immediate kinship with each other, regardless of which of the 4 types of alcoholic families they come from or how dissimilar their individual outer behavior has been. Core emotions. Looking at the chart, under the emotional characteristics heading, at the top of the list is fear. There is good reason for this. Fear is the root issue and core emotion of all ACAs. The underlying fear is manifested in anger and hurt. The fear, anger, and hurt, along with resentment, distrust, sadness, and loneliness, have been discussed in detail in the previous chapter. The fear, anger, and hurt, along with resentment, distrust, sadness, and loneliness, have been discussed in detail in the previous chapter. Although abandonment is a core experience for ACAs, it is an oversimplification to state that abandonment and the emotional effects of abandonment are the only issues that have an emotional impact on the ACA. The actions of the alcoholic and the enforcement of the 4 family rules discussed in previous sections have a great impact on the child growing up in the alcoholic family. All of the above emotions, fear, anger, hurt, resentment, distrust, sadness, and loneliness, are emotional states that are a result of the irrational behavior of the alcoholic family. These secondary emotional states are very painful to the ACA and must be resolved for true recovery to take place. Abandonment, however, must be dealt with as a major issue. If abandonment is not resolved, then recovery will be crippled, and recovery is possible. Shame and guilt. The alcoholic family is a system based on shame and guilt. The family uses shame and guilt to enforce the family rules. This shame and guilt should not be minimized. The ACA must acknowledge and talk about the feelings of shame, guilt, and other painful emotions that are a direct result of the behavior of the alcoholic family. This is a must for recovery. In my experience, however, as the shame and guilt are talked about, this will lead to the core issues of fear, anger, and hurt. Numbness. It is important to note that the way most ACAs deal with painful emotional states is by going numb. The ACA, as he or she is growing up, learns very quickly that showing feelings is not okay. In order to survive all the painful emotional states that develop as a result of the dynamics of the alcoholic family, the child learns to turn off feelings. Although the feelings may be turned off, that does not mean that they do not exist. ACAs who talk about never feeling any strong emotions are like volcanoes. At any moment, they have the potential to explode. Mental characteristics. The ACA develops a mental outlook and a way of looking at the world that is directly related to living in an alcoholic family. The rules governing the family shape the thoughts of the child growing up in the alcoholic system. Thinking in absolutes. ACAs do not have a sense of process of life. They think in terms of black or white and are generally unable to negotiate for their needs. In all areas of their lives, it's all or nothing. This leads to being super responsible or super irresponsible on the job and in other life situations. Lack of information. ACAs, as a rule, do not possess concrete information on how to live life. When they were growing up, there was no one to answer their questions. When an ACA says, "I don't know," or "I don't understand," it is not a lie. The lack of information is both in concrete knowledge and in the ability to deal with emotional states. Compulsive thinking. ACAs often become focused on one thought or idea and cannot get this thought or idea out of their minds. The thought becomes compulsive. Even if the ACA does not act on the thought, it still rules the thinking process. This obsessive thinking can be focused on a job, a person, or almost anything else in the ACA's life. Indecision. ACAs often have trouble making decisions. They get caught between endlessly trying to figure out all the possibilities and having to be perfect. Often the roots of indecision lie in an early childhood parental divorce, where the child thinks that he or she has to make a decision between which parent to love. This is a no-win situation. Learning disabilities. ACAs appear to have a high incidence of learning disabilities, such as dyslexia. Often these learning disabilities go undiscovered and cause the child a great deal of trouble in school. Confusion. ACAs often have difficulty in thinking clearly. Their thoughts are confused and muddled. Under pressure, the confusion becomes acute. and the ACA sometimes becomes paralyzed and unable to act. Hypervigilance. Some ACAs are acutely aware of all the things that are going on around them. They need to be aware of everything that is happening in order to feel safe. This is a direct result of growing up in an unsafe environment, where they need to be aware of exactly what is happening so they know how to act. Although most ACAs do not display all of these mental characteristics, most have at least one or more. Physical characteristics. ACAs often have a wide variety of physical disorders that are a result of growing up in an alcoholic family, which is a high-stress environment. These physical symptoms that occur in some ACAs range from mild discomfort to severely disabling. Tense shoulders. ACAs often carry their repressed feelings in their shoulders and upper back. The area around the upper shoulders where the shoulders and neck meet are often very hard and almost rock-like. This often causes headaches. Lower back pain. ACAs often display their feelings of lack of support and being isolated in their lower back. This can cause a dull ache or sharp pain in their lower back region. Often the discomfort will be on one side or the other. Sexual dysfunction. ACAs often obsess about sex to the point where they cannot function sexually, or withdraw from their sexuality and do not participate. Sexual dysfunction in ACAs is not surprising, considering the high rate of sexual abuse in alcoholic families. This abuse includes not only girls. There is an increasing evidence that a high percentage of boys have been sexually abused. The range of dysfunction is wide and often includes impotence, performance anxiety, inability to have orgasms, and deep feelings of shame or guilt, which make sex uncomfortable or impossible. Gastrointestinal disorders. ACAs often have a wide variety of intestinal disorders, such as ulcers, chronic constipation, diarrhea, chronic heartburn, and upset stomach. Repressed emotions often cause gastrointestinal problems. There is a reason why gut feelings are called that. The repression of these feelings can cause dis-ease. Stress-related disorders. ACAs often have frequent colds and flus and have difficulty sleeping. A growing body of evidence also suggests that ACAs get more than their fair share of cancer and other diseases. A feeling of fatigue and a general state of low energy are often a part of the ACA's life. Allergies. ACAs often are allergic to foods, pollen, molds, and a host of other items, including alcohol and other drugs. Many of the above diseases have direct links to the emotional effects of being raised in an alcoholic family. After ACAs have been in treatment, many of their physical problems become resolved. It is important, however, to acknowledge that many of the illnesses of ACAs can and should be treated by a qualified medical doctor. A good physical examination that includes allergy testing is not only desirable, but could be life-saving. Stomach problems can be caused by insufficient stomach acid, which, in many cases, is easily remedied if discovered. Low energy and fatigue can be caused by a variety of physical problems, including vitamin deficiency or adrenal fatigue. Whatever the problem, a physical exam should be a part of the recovery process. Behavioral characteristics. There are certain behavioral characteristics and traits that ACAs share. All ACAs do not share the same characteristics, but they do share the same reasons for developing these traits. The behavioral characteristics of the ACA were developed as a way of responding to the unpredictable and sometimes dangerous behavior of the alcoholic family. As a child grows up, he or she has a tendency to model the behaviors of the parents and other important adults. Since the adults in the alcoholic family are acting in accordance with the 4 family rules, the child will also learn to behave in accordance with these rules. The child in an alcoholic family will not only model the behavior of the adults in the family, but will also develop behaviors that are survival-oriented. Some of the behavioral characteristics that are common to ACAs are described below. Crisis-oriented living. The nature of the alcoholic family is to live from one crisis to the next. The ACA organizes his or her life in a way that ensures that crises will occur on a regular basis. If a crisis does not happen, the ACA will often create one. This crisis-oriented existence keeps the ACA in a constant state of activity that helps the ACA feel alive and useful. The constant activity also sets up a smokescreen so that the ACA does not have time to take a serious look at him or herself. Manipulative behavior. The ACA has a desperate need to control his or her environment. This includes people, jobs, physical space, and just about anything else. This need to control is directly related to growing up in the unpredictable and emotionally immature alcoholic family. The child growing up in this family has a need to establish some consistency in his or her life. Since the alcoholic family is out of control, regardless of how it appears, the child is in this system. The child in this system tries to control the system in order to bring about some consistency. Since the child's needs for love, affection, attention, and recognition cannot be met by the alcoholic family, the child will develop manipulative techniques in order to get his or her needs met. The ACA, having learned as a child how to get his or her needs met, will continue to behave in a manipulative manner all of his or her life unless this pattern is recognized and broken. Thus, the ACA does not know any other way to behave, but suspects that he or she is doing something that is unhealthy. Intimacy problems. Intimacy requires trust, communication, and the ability to resolve conflict. The ACA has very little training on how to do any of these and learns at a very early age not to trust. The ACA also has difficulty expressing feelings, talking about needs and wants, and sometimes even carrying on a general conversation, let alone talking about things that are personally important. ACAs are not able to resolve conflict. They would rather pretend that it does not exist. They cannot negotiate. The ACA approaches relationships in two basic ways. First is the shotgun approach, in which the ACA jumps from one relationship to another, seeking some unattainable magical quality in another person that will make him or her okay. The second is the bulldog approach, in which the ACA finds one person and clings to him or her for dear life, no matter how sick or unwilling the other person is. The sad thing is that the ACA knows that something is wrong with these kinds of relationships. However, the ACA cannot quite figure out what it is. When asked what intimacy is, most ACAs will get a blank look and give a confused answer. Inability to have fun. The alcoholic family is so serious and chaotic that the children in the family never learn how to play. An alcoholic family is not a fun place to be. The inability to have fun is also linked to the need to control. It's hard to have fun when you're trying to control everything. Most ACAs take everything very seriously. Even when they are laughing and appear to be having fun, they are waiting for the axe to fall and the fun to come to an abrupt, painful halt. Trying to fit in. Most ACAs try to fit in with whatever group they happen to be in. They are masters at blending into crowds. Regardless of how uncomfortable they feel inside, their outside tries to remain natural. ACAs have a real fear of drawing attention to themselves. This is directly related to their roots in the alcoholic family, where it could be downright dangerous to draw attention to oneself. The fear of being noticed follows most ACAs all their lives. Compulsive addictive behavior. The alcoholic family is a compulsive addictive one, and the children from this system learn compulsive addictive behaviors. I don't believe that there is any other group that is more compulsive and addictive than ACAs. They learn this behavior as children and, without intervention, will continue it until they die. Compulsive and addictive behavior is extremely painful, and the range of behaviors is almost limitless. If it can be done, the ACA will find a way to do it compulsively and addictively. Some of the more common behaviors include 1. Alcoholism. The ACA is a very high-risk candidate for this disease. 2. Drug addiction. As in alcoholism, the ACA is at high risk. 3. Eating disorders, such as overeating, anorexia, and bulimia. 4. Smoking. 5. Addictive relationships. 6. Addicted to and compulsive about sex. 7. Addicted and compulsive about exercise. 8. Compulsive about being perfect and doing a perfect job. 9. Addicted and compulsive about fill in the blank. It could be just about anything. The characterization of the ACA's characteristics into the 4 main groupings of emotional, mental, physical, and behavioral is an attempt to clarify a syndrome that is extremely complex in nature. When viewing the above model, it is important to realize that the model is not the person. Each individual ACA is unique. The common characteristics of ACAs are a result of the shared experience of being raised in an alcoholic family. It is this shared experience and the resulting emotional baseline of fear, anger, and hurt that is the true common denominator. The mental, physical, and behavioral characteristics may change from person to person, but the emotional baseline is the same. The ACA is driven by internal forces and motives that, for the most part, are of an unconscious nature. ACAs do not know why they feel, think, and behave as they do, and when they do gain insight into their feelings and behaviors, often do not believe that they can change. They feel stuck and hopeless. But ACAs do recover and have been recovering by the thousands. I have never run across a group of people who are more dedicated to recovery. Their courage and willingness is inspiring. In part 2 of this book, techniques for recovery will be explored in depth.